The message reached Earth at exactly 3:17 in the morning. Most people never saw it happen live. The streets were quiet. Lights glowed softly inside apartment windows, while millions slept without knowing that something enormous had just entered the edge of the solar system. High above the planet, hidden military satellites detected thousands of unknown objects moving together in perfect formation. Within minutes, alarms sounded inside underground command centers across the world. At first, many officers thought it was another false warning. Over the years, strange signals had appeared many times near Earth, but nothing ever came from them. This time felt different. The objects were too organized, too massive, and moving far too fast. Inside a secure operations room buried beneath solid rock, a tired technician stared at the giant screen in front of him. Hundreds of red markers appeared one after another until the map looked completely covered. He slowly removed his headset. "They're here," he whispered. No one in the room spoke after that. For years, governments had hidden the truth from the public. Strange radio signals from deep space had been monitored for decades. Some were weak. Others carried patterns impossible to explain. Then came the discovery that changed everything. Humanity was not alone. Far beyond Earth, civilizations had already risen and fallen among the stars. Some traded peacefully. Others conquered entire worlds. But one name appeared again and again in intercepted alien transmissions. The Dominion, a military empire so feared that entire systems surrendered the moment their ships appeared. According to recovered records, they had already defeated 164 civilizations. No one had ever stopped them. Not once. Entire planets disappeared after resisting. Their fleets moved from system to system like storms, leaving silence behind them. Over time, the Dominion became arrogant. Victory after victory convinced them they were unstoppable. And now they were heading toward Earth. Deep inside the command center, world leaders watched the incoming fleet through satellite projections. The ships looked enormous compared to anything humans had ever built. Some stretched for miles across space. Others carried weapons powerful enough to destroy cities in seconds. One officer tried to remain calm. "Maybe they only want communication." No one answered him. Then the transmission arrived. The signal forced itself through every defense network on Earth. Screens flickered. Radios screamed with static. Phones shut down for several seconds before restarting on their own. Suddenly, a strange symbol appeared everywhere. Then a voice followed. Cold, calm, confident. "This world now belongs to the Dominion. Resistance is pointless. Your species will surrender immediately." The message repeated in every major language on Earth. People woke in confusion as televisions switched on by themselves. Cars stopped working in some cities. Airports froze operations. Social media exploded with panic and rumors. Many still believed it was a prank. Until the ships became visible. Tiny lights appeared in the night sky just before sunrise. At first they looked like distant stars. Then more appeared. And more. Within hours, the entire planet could see them. Millions of people stood outside staring upward in silence. Children pointed at the sky. Parents tried to stay calm. News reporters struggled to speak without shaking. Humanity had finally met another intelligent species, and it was not peaceful. Inside the Dominion flagship, celebration had already begun. Their commanders laughed while watching Earth's broadcasts. Humans looked weak compared to most species they had conquered before. No natural armor. No advanced space fleet. No visible planetary shields. To the Dominion, Earth looked primitive. An easy victory. The fleet commander stood at the center of the massive control chamber with his hands behind his back. His dark uniform carried symbols representing every civilization his empire had defeated. 164 victories. Not a single defeat. He looked down at Earth rotating slowly beneath the fleet. "This species still uses old aircraft and chemical weapons," one officer said with amusement. Another chuckled. "They won't survive a single hour." The commander nodded calmly. "Prepare the surrender broadcast. We will take the planet intact." Across the fleet, thousands of soldiers prepared for invasion. Massive weapon systems powered on one after another. Carrier ships opened like giant metal jaws, revealing rows of attack fighters inside. Everything moved with confidence. No fear. No caution. Why would there be? Every species before humanity had failed. Back on Earth, fear spread quickly. Stores filled with desperate crowds. Roads became blocked with traffic. Some people prayed while others locked themselves inside their homes. Governments tried calming the public, but even officials looked terrified during live broadcasts. Still, something strange was happening behind the scenes. Despite the panic, certain military groups remained unusually calm. Hidden bases around the world suddenly became active. Deep underground facilities opened after years of silence. Convoys moved during the night without headlights. Unknown aircraft lifted from secret runways hidden inside mountains and deserts. Most civilians never noticed, but some did. A young journalist working near a military zone watched dozens of black transport trucks disappear through a giant steel gate beneath a hillside. Soldiers quickly blocked the road and forced everyone away. That same night, several retired scientists were quietly taken from their homes by government vehicles. Something had already been prepared long before the invasion began. The truth was simple. Humanity had known this day might come. Years earlier, deep space monitoring stations intercepted fragments of alien communications. Most of it was impossible to translate, but one message became clear after decades of study. The Dominion was expanding toward Earth. From that moment forward, secret programs began across the planet. Rival nations worked together in total secrecy. Scientists disappeared into underground labs. Experimental weapons received unlimited funding. Officially, these programs never existed. Even most world leaders only knew small pieces of the truth. One hidden facility rested beneath thick ice near the southern pole. Another remained buried under a remote desert. Several more floated beneath the oceans where satellites could not detect them. Humanity could not match the Dominion fleet in size, so they built something else. Something different. Back aboard the flagship, the Dominion commander finally gave the order to begin orbital positioning. Thousands of ships slowly spread around Earth like a giant metal net. The sight terrified everyone below. Dark shadows crossed over cities during daylight as enormous vessels moved into position. Their size blocked sunlight for entire sections of the planet. People recorded videos from rooftops and streets. Some cried while filming. Others simply stared in silence. No attack came. Not yet. The Dominion enjoyed fear. For them, terror was part of victory. The commander wanted humanity to understand how powerless they truly were before surrendering. Another transmission echoed across Earth. You have 1 hour to comply. The countdown began immediately. Panic grew worse. Religious gatherings filled overnight. Emergency shelters opened worldwide. Some people tried fleeing major cities even though there was nowhere safe to go. Inside the underground command center, military officials monitored every movement above the planet. Then one scientist entered carrying a small metal case. The room became silent as he placed it carefully on the table. An older commander looked at him. "Is it ready?" The scientist hesitated for a moment before answering. "We've never tested it on this scale." "That wasn't my question." A long pause followed. Finally, the scientist nodded. "Yes." The commander slowly looked back toward the giant display showing the alien fleet surrounding Earth. "Then we use it." Far above the atmosphere, the Dominion prepared the first wave of ships to descend toward major military zones. Fighter pilots entered their craft confidently. Soldiers joked with one another while loading weapons. To them, this mission was routine. Another easy conquest. One officer even placed a bet that Earth would surrender before the first shot. Then something unexpected happened. One of the outer patrol ships suddenly vanished from radar. At first, nearby crews assumed it had suffered a system failure. But seconds later, another disappeared. Then another. No explosions. No debris. No distress signal. They were simply gone. Confusion spread across the fleet. Operators checked scanners repeatedly, believing the systems were malfunctioning. Yet the missing ships never reappeared. The Dominion commander frowned for the first time since arriving at Earth. "Report," he demanded. An officer nervously stepped forward. We cannot locate Patrol Group 7. The commander's expression hardened. "How does an entire patrol group disappear?" No one answered. Across the bridge, tension slowly replaced confidence. Meanwhile, deep beneath Earth's surface, human technicians watched the same event unfold on their own screens. One young operator stared in disbelief. "It worked," he whispered. Another technician looked pale. That was only the first phase. The older commander remained completely focused. "Prepare the second activation." Above the planet, silence spread through sections of the Dominion fleet. Ships stopped moving while crews searched desperately for answers. For the first time in hundreds of victories, uncertainty entered their minds. Earth was not reacting like conquered worlds usually did. There were no surrender ships, no desperate negotiations, no visible defense fleet, only silence. And somewhere inside that silence, something invisible was hunting them. The silence above Earth lasted only 43 seconds. That was all it took to change the mood inside the Dominion fleet. For the first time in centuries, their commanders were confused. 3 patrol ships had vanished completely near the dark side of Earth's orbit. No explosion, no damaged signals, no escape pods. One moment the ships existed, and the next moment they were gone like they had never been there at all. Inside the massive flagship, warning lights flashed across the command bridge while officers rushed between control stations. "We lost visual contact again." Scanning all nearby sectors. Still no debris. The fleet commander stood perfectly still at the center of the room. His calm face hid growing frustration. Around him, nervous officers avoided eye contact. The Dominion Empire did not lose ships. Not like this. One officer finally spoke carefully. "Perhaps the humans possess stealth weapons." The commander slowly turned toward him. "A species that still uses fuel-based aircraft cannot erase battle cruisers. But the patrol ships are gone." The commander's eyes narrowed. "Then find them." Across the fleet, scanning drones spread through orbit searching for any trace of the missing vessels. Advanced sensors swept across Earth's atmosphere, oceans, and nearby space. Nothing appeared. No metal fragments. No radiation. No wreckage. It was as if the ships had simply stopped existing. Down on Earth, billions of people watched the alien fleet hanging over the planet like giant shadows. News broadcasts played non-stop while governments tried to control panic. Some cities had become completely silent. Roads once filled with traffic now sat empty. Stores were abandoned. Families stayed hidden inside homes while staring nervously through windows at the enormous objects floating above the clouds. Others gathered together in public spaces, waiting for answers no one could give. Every few minutes, another rumor spread online. The aliens attacked Europe. They landed in the ocean. The military surrendered. None of it was true, at least not yet. Inside a secure underground facility beneath thick layers of rock, human scientists and military leaders worked without rest. Giant screens showed the Dominion fleet moving slowly around Earth. A young technician wiped sweat from his forehead while studying incoming data. "The first phase overloaded one of the generators," he said nervously. "If we continue at this pace, the system may collapse." An older scientist adjusted his glasses while reading the numbers carefully. It held longer than expected. That was only against 3 ships. The room became quiet. Everyone understood the truth. The Dominion fleet contained thousands. At the far end of the command room, a senior military officer stood with his arms crossed while watching the orbital map. "How long before they attack?" Another officer answered immediately. "They're repositioning their destroyers now. We estimate less than 1 hour." The older commander nodded slowly. "Then we make every second count." Years earlier, humanity realized they could never defeat an interstellar empire through normal warfare. The Dominion had conquered worlds far more advanced than Earth. Matching their ship's weapon for weapon was impossible. So human scientists explored another path. Instead of building stronger weapons, They focused on removing targets entirely. Matter displacement, a dangerous theory once considered impossible. The idea was terrifyingly simple. Instead of destroying an enemy ship, the system would force the object out of physical space itself for a fraction of a second. That fraction was enough. Anything affected would disappear permanently. No explosion, no remains, no recovery. The technology nearly destroyed several research facilities during early testing. Entire laboratory sections vanished without warning. In one accident, an underground chamber disappeared so completely that not even dust remained. Many scientists wanted the project shut down forever, but the warnings from deep space kept growing. The Dominion was coming, and humanity kept preparing. Back above Earth, the Dominion commander finally lost patience. "This delay is embarrassing," he said coldly. Officers remained silent. He stepped toward the central display showing Earth rotating below them. "A primitive species has disrupted our operation long enough. Launch the atmospheric strike groups." Within seconds, giant carrier ships opened across orbit. Thousands of attack fighters rushed outward in perfect formation. Their engines glowed bright blue against the darkness of space as they descended toward Earth. People across the planet watched in horror. The invasion had started. Emergency sirens screamed through major cities. Military aircraft lifted from hidden bases around the world. Naval fleets moved across oceans while missile defense systems powered online. Yet something still felt strange. Human leaders did not announce surrender. They did not beg for peace. Instead, encrypted military channels remained calm and controlled. Almost too calm. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, hidden doors slowly opened along the ocean floor. Massive black structures rose silently from the darkness below. Their surfaces carried no flags or markings. Water poured from the smooth metal as the machines activated for the first time in years. Far above, Dominion pilots entered Earth's atmosphere confidently. Some laughed while targeting military zones below. Others recorded video messages expecting easy victory footage to send home later. Then their systems began failing. One pilot frowned as his screen flickered violently. "Navigation error?" Another voice answered over the communication channel. "I'm getting interference too." Suddenly, one fighter vanished directly in front of the squadron. The pilot behind it jerked backward in shock. "Where did he go?" No response came. Then two more disappeared. Panic spread instantly through the formation. Ships broke formation while warning alarms screamed through cockpits. "It's happening again. We're losing craft. Pull up, pull up." But there was nothing to dodge. No missiles, no visible weapons, just invisible death. Across the skies above Earth, alien fighters began disappearing one after another. Some vanished mid-turn. Others disappeared while firing weapons. A few simply blinked out of existence in front of horrified civilians watching from below. The world stared upward in disbelief. News helicopters captured footage of entire formations disappearing from clear blue skies without any explosion at all. Inside the Dominion flagship, chaos erupted. "We are losing atmospheric units across every sector." "How many?" "Over 200 confirmed missing." The commander slammed his hand against the control platform hard enough to crack the surface. "That is impossible." One nervous officer spoke carefully. "Perhaps the humans anticipated our arrival." The commander glared at him. No species prepares for the Dominion. But even he no longer sounded confident. Deep underground beneath Antarctica, another hidden facility came alive. Rows of massive machines stretched through tunnels beneath the ice. Energy pulsed through thick cables connected to a glowing circular structure larger than a stadium. Scientists moved quickly between control stations while cold air filled the chamber. A woman studying energy levels looked toward the lead engineer. "The orbital field is stabilizing. How long can we hold it?" "Not long." The engineer stared at the giant machine. "Long enough." For years, humanity had hidden these facilities from satellites and spy networks. Even most governments believed they were abandoned research stations. In reality, they formed a planetary defense grid, a last resort. And now every system on Earth was slowly waking up. Back in orbit, Dominion warships began moving farther away from the planet. Fear had entered the fleet. Officers no longer joked about humans. Pilots requested emergency retreat clearance. Some commanders demanded permission to bombard Earth from long distance instead of entering the atmosphere again. But the fleet commander refused. Retreat would destroy his reputation forever. 164 Victories stood behind him. Entire galaxies feared the Dominion because they never backed away from battle. He would not become the first commander to show weakness. "Prepare the destroyers," he ordered coldly. An officer hesitated. "Commander, with respect, we still do not understand the weapon. Then we overwhelm it." The command bridge fell silent. The commander pointed toward Earth. "That planet wants us afraid. I will show them what fear truly looks like." Moments later, the largest ships in the fleet powered their weapons. Massive energy cannons slowly rotated toward Earth's surface. Their glowing cores lit the darkness of space like artificial suns. Down below, people watched the sky change color. Clouds reflected strange blue light from orbit. Children cried while parents held them tightly. Emergency broadcasts instructed civilians to stay underground if possible. But many new shelters would not save them if those weapons fired. Inside the human command center, tension filled every room. A communications officer looked toward the senior commander. "They are preparing planetary bombardment." "How long?" "Less than 10 minutes. The commander nodded once. "Activate Phase 2. Several people exchanged nervous looks. One scientist stepped forward carefully. "If we activate the full network now, there may be no way to control the spread. We don't have another choice." The scientist lowered his eyes. No one argued after that. Across hidden facilities worldwide, giant generators powered on fully for the first time. Entire cities experienced blackouts as unimaginable amounts of energy disappeared into underground systems. People looked upward as strange vibrations moved through the ground beneath their feet. In orbit, Dominion scanners suddenly detected a massive energy surge rising from Earth. The fleet commander frowned. "What are they doing?" Before anyone could answer, the stars around part of the fleet seemed to bend slightly. At first, it looked like a visual distortion. Then space itself began twisting. One destroyer near the outer formation suddenly stretched unnaturally before vanishing completely. Then another disappeared. Then 5 more. Panic exploded across the fleet. "It's spreading. Move the ships away. Navigation controls are failing." For the first time in Dominion history, soldiers who had conquered entire civilizations began trying to escape. But Earth's hidden defense system had finally awakened. And it was only beginning. The Dominion fleet began retreating for the first time in its history. Across Earth's orbit, giant alien warships broke formation and moved away from the strange distortions spreading through space. Some ships accelerated so fast their engines burned bright enough to be seen from the ground. But escape was becoming difficult. Every few seconds, another vessel vanished. No explosion, no warning, no remains. The invisible force surrounding Earth moved silently through space like a storm no one could see. Inside the Dominion flagship, fear spread faster than anyone wanted to admit. Officers shouted over each other while alarms echoed across the bridge. "We lost another destroyer. Outer defense line is collapsing. Long-range sensors are failing." The fleet commander stared at the tactical display with disbelief. Entire sections of his fleet were disappearing one after another. Ships that had survived countless wars were vanishing without even firing a shot. One nervous officer finally spoke the words no one wanted to hear. "We should withdraw from the system." The room went silent. The commander slowly turned toward him. "You are suggesting retreat? We do not understand the human weapon." The commander's face darkened. "The Dominion does not retreat from primitive species. But we are losing ships faster every minute." Another officer stepped forward carefully. "Commander, this is unlike anything we've faced before." The commander looked around the bridge. Fear. He could see it clearly now. The same soldiers who once laughed at humanity were now afraid of Earth. that angered him more than the disappearing ships. He slammed both hands onto the command platform. No more hesitation. Launch the full invasion. Several officers froze in shock. Commander, if Earth wants war, we will bury this planet beneath our entire fleet. Across orbit, new orders spread instantly through the Dominion forces. Attack carriers opened again. Thousands of fighters launched toward Earth's atmosphere. Heavy assault ships followed behind them while massive cruisers prepared orbital weapons. The commander had decided to overwhelm humanity through sheer numbers. If the strange defense system could erase a few ships at a time, then he would send thousands. Down on Earth, people watched the skies fill with movement again. News cameras captured endless lines of alien fighters descending through the clouds. Their glowing engines stretched across the atmosphere like burning scars. Emergency alerts sounded worldwide. Military personnel rushed into defensive positions. Families gathered inside shelters while trying not to panic. But something else was happening too. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity revealed part of its hidden strength. In remote deserts, giant underground doors slowly opened. Inside frozen mountain ranges, hidden hangars activated after years of silence. Beneath oceans, black aircraft rose from hidden platforms under the water. People around the world stared in shock as unknown human vehicles appeared for the first time. No country symbols, no markings, only dark metallic surfaces designed to avoid radar detection. For decades, humanity had secretly built weapons no civilian even knew existed. And now the world was finally seeing them. Inside one underground airbase, pilots moved quickly toward their aircraft while technicians completed final checks. A young pilot stopped briefly before climbing into the cockpit. "You think any of us are coming back?" An older mechanic looked at him quietly. "If those things reach the cities, nobody comes back." The pilot nodded once and sealed the cockpit. Moments later, the black aircraft launched upward through a vertical tunnel toward the surface. Across the planet, hundreds more followed. The Dominion pilots expected fear and confusion from humans. Instead, they encountered organized resistance. Human aircraft appeared suddenly from clouds, mountains, and oceans. Their movements were fast and strangely coordinated. They avoided direct fights whenever possible, striking quickly before disappearing again. Alien pilots struggled to track them. "They're using terrain for cover. I lost target lock again. Where are these craft coming from?" Above the Pacific Ocean, a Dominion fighter squadron chased several human aircraft through heavy clouds. The alien pilots smiled confidently as their targeting systems locked on. Then the human planes suddenly split apart in different directions. A second later, the ocean below them opened. Massive hidden defense towers rose from beneath the water and fired bright pulses into the sky. 3 alien fighters vanished instantly. The remaining pilots scattered in panic. Human aircraft turned sharply and disappeared back into the clouds. The Dominion had entered a battlefield Earth had prepared for years. Inside the underground command center, human officers monitored combat across the planet. A technician pointed toward one section of the global map. "The eastern grid is holding. What about orbital pressure? Still increasing." Another scientist looked exhausted after hours without rest. "The displacement network is overheating. We can't maintain full output much longer." The senior commander remained calm. "We only need enough time." "For what?" The commander looked toward the giant screen showing the Dominion fleet surrounding Earth. "For them to make a mistake." Back aboard the flagship, the Dominion commander watched the battle unfold with growing rage. Humans were fighting differently than expected. They avoided large confrontations and focused on disruption instead. Hidden weapons appeared unexpectedly across the planet. Entire sections of Earth seemed prepared long before the invasion started. That realization disturbed him deeply. Humanity knew they were coming. Not recently. Years ago. Maybe longer. One officer approached carefully. "Commander, our forces report hidden military structures beneath multiple regions on the planet." "How many?" "We don't know." The commander clenched his jaw. Every answer created more questions. Primitive species were not supposed to plan defenses against interstellar empires. Yet Earth had done exactly that. Suddenly, another alarm sounded. A nearby cruiser disappeared from orbit. Then another vanished seconds later. The invisible field was still spreading. Panic returned immediately across the bridge. We are losing central formation. The field is destabilizing nearby space. Several ships cannot activate jump drives. The commander stared at the tactical display. Entire areas around Earth now looked distorted, almost like reality itself was bending. For the first time in centuries, uncertainty entered his mind. Maybe this war had already been lost before it even started. But pride pushed the thought away instantly. He had conquered 164 civilizations. He would not become the commander remembered for failing against humans. "Prepare the planetary cannons," he ordered coldly. An officer hesitated. "Commander, some ships are too close to the distortion field." "I gave an order." Across the fleet, massive weapons slowly aligned toward Earth. Energy built inside giant cannons capable of leveling entire cities. Down below, people saw the sky glowing brighter than before. Fear spread quickly. Even military commanders understood what those weapons could do. Inside shelters around the world, families sat silently while listening to distant vibrations above them. Some held hands. Others watched old videos on their phones, unsure if they would survive the next hour. A little boy inside one shelter looked at his mother nervously. "Are the humans winning?" She forced a weak smile. "We're still here." Meanwhile, deep beneath Antarctica, the hidden human facility pushed beyond safe limits. Warning lights flashed across every control station. "The core temperature is rising. We're reaching critical instability." The lead engineer studied the numbers carefully. "If we shut down now, the orbital field collapses. And if we don't?" The engineer looked toward the massive machine humming beneath the chamber floor. "Then we risk tearing open more than just the fleet." Silence filled the room. Nobody fully understood the long-term effects of the technology they had created. The displacement field manipulated space itself. Scientists knew how to activate it. Controlling it perfectly was another matter entirely. Still, there was no choice. Above Earth, Dominion cannons finally charged completely. The fleet commander raised one hand. "Fire!" Before the order could execute, every screen on the bridge suddenly went black. Confused officers looked around in panic. Then a human signal appeared across the entire fleet. Simple white text. No symbols. No threats. Only one sentence. "Leave Earth now." The message repeated again and again. Some officers exchanged nervous looks. One quietly whispered, "They're warning us." The commander's face twisted with anger. A bluff. But even he no longer sounded certain. Seconds later, the nearest Dominion battleship suddenly folded inward like crushed metal and disappeared completely. Then 5 more vanished. Then 12. The distortion field had reached the fleet's core formation. Chaos exploded instantly. Ships collided while attempting emergency escape maneuvers. Pilots screamed through communication channels. Entire sections of orbit became impossible to navigate safely. Human forces on Earth watched silently as the greatest military empire in known space began losing control. Inside the underground command center, one young technician stared at the screen in disbelief. "They're breaking apart." Another operator looked equally shocked. "I don't think they expected resistance." The senior commander finally spoke quietly. "No empire expects resistance after too many victories." High above the planet, the Dominion fleet continued collapsing into panic. And for the first time in centuries, the galaxy's most feared empire was no longer hunting. It was trying to survive. The Dominion fleet was no longer fighting for victory. Now it was fighting to escape. Across Earth's orbit, giant warships crashed into one another while trying to flee the spreading distortion field. Engines burned at maximum power. Emergency signals flooded communication channels. Pilots screamed for instructions that no one could give anymore. The perfect military order that once defined the Dominion had completely collapsed. And Earth was still standing. On the surface, people around the world watched live footage from news satellites showing sections of the alien fleet disappearing without warning. Massive ships that once looked unstoppable now vanished silently into empty space. No explosions, no debris, just sudden emptiness. For many humans, fear slowly changed into disbelief. Then disbelief turned into hope. Inside underground shelters, people began whispering the same question. Are we actually winning? Military forces across Earth continued defending major regions while hidden defense systems remained active. Human aircraft moved carefully through the skies, avoiding direct battles whenever possible. The goal was no longer survival alone. The goal was pressure. Keep the Dominion trapped long enough for the orbital field to spread further. Deep beneath Antarctica, the massive displacement generator roared louder than ever before. Thick cables shook violently while sparks burst from overloaded systems. Technicians ran through smoke-filled corridors carrying emergency equipment. The cooling systems are failing. We lost another reactor line. Energy output is becoming unstable. At the center platform, the lead engineer stared at the growing warnings on the main display. The field was expanding too fast. At first, the technology had only affected individual ships. Now it was beginning to influence entire sections of nearby space. That had never happened during testing. One scientist looked terrified. If the spread continues, it could reach the moon's orbit. Another answered quietly. Or worse. Everyone understood the danger. Humanity's greatest weapon might eventually become impossible to control. Still, shutting it down now would give the Dominion time to regroup. And nobody trusted the Empire to show mercy after this battle. Inside the main command center, military leaders debated their next move. One officer pointed toward the orbital map. The fleet is pulling away from the northern hemisphere. Another shook his head. No. Look closer. The room became silent. Several Dominion ships were not retreating. They were moving toward Antarctica, toward the source. The fleet commander had finally realized something important. The strange weapon affecting his ships was not everywhere equally. Its strongest activity centered near Earth's southern pole. That meant the humans were controlling it from somewhere below the ice. He immediately changed tactics. If he could destroy the source, the Dominion fleet might still survive. Inside the flagship bridge, alarms continued flashing while officers struggled to maintain control. We've lost contact with 26 more vessels. Navigation systems remain unstable. Several carrier groups are requesting full retreat authorization. The commander ignored them all. His eyes remained fixed on Antarctica. That is where they're hiding, he said quietly. One officer hesitated before speaking. Commander, our forces are already suffering catastrophic losses. Then we end this now. He pointed toward the southern region of Earth. All remaining assault cruisers will target the ice continent. The officer looked shocked. That area has no civilian population. Exactly. The commander's voice became cold again. They built their weapon where they believed nobody would notice. Across orbit, surviving Dominion warships changed direction. Thousands of human defense systems immediately detected the movement. Inside Earth's underground command centers, tension returned instantly. They're heading south. They found the origin point. How much time do we have? A technician answered quickly. Less than 30 minutes. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. If the Dominion reached the Antarctic facility, the entire planetary defense network could collapse. The senior commander slowly looked around the room. We hold them here. No one argued. Orders spread rapidly across every hidden military channel on Earth. Aircraft changed course toward the southern hemisphere. Naval groups moved through icy waters. Long-range defense platforms powered online beneath frozen mountains. Humanity was about to defend the one secret facility that kept Earth alive. Far below the ice, workers continued struggling to stabilize the displacement core. The giant machine now emitted a deep sound that shook the entire underground complex. Lights flickered constantly while cracks spread across nearby walls. A young technician looked nervously toward the lead engineer. Sir, If the core ruptures, the engineer finished the sentence for him. There may be nothing left of this continent. The technician swallowed hard. Shouldn't we evacuate? The engineer slowly shook his head. If we leave, Earth falls. Above Antarctica, dark clouds rolled across the sky as Dominion warships entered the region. Their massive shapes blocked moonlight across the frozen landscape. Human defense aircraft rushed upward to intercept them. Unlike earlier battles, this fight became direct and brutal. The Dominion ships fired massive energy blasts toward the ice while human aircraft weaved through explosions trying desperately to slow them down. One pilot breathed heavily inside his cockpit while warning alarms screamed around him. "We can't stop all of them." Another pilot answered through static. "We only need time." The human aircraft attacked aggressively despite overwhelming odds. Some targeted weapon systems while others distracted alien fighters away from the main facility zone. People across Earth watched the battle live through military broadcasts. The southern sky glowed with flashes of light visible from thousands of miles away. For the first time in human history, the entire planet felt united. No politics, no borders, only survival. Back inside the Dominion flagship, the commander watched the Antarctic assault carefully. He could finally see the human strategy clearly now. Earth had hidden its strength for years. Everything about the planet was deception. Primitive appearance, divided governments, outdated military technology shown publicly to the world. It had all been an act. Humanity knew they could not intimidate stronger civilizations directly. So they waited quietly, prepared secretly, and built weapons in silence. The realization filled him with anger. Humans had fooled the Dominion Empire. An officer interrupted his thoughts. "Commander, the distortion field is increasing again." "How?" "We don't know. The humans are pushing the system beyond previous levels." The commander stared toward Earth. Even now, while under attack, humanity was strengthening the weapon destroying his fleet. He clenched his fists. Then destroy the source before they activate it completely. Above Antarctica, Dominion assault ships finally broke through the outer defense lines. Several giant cruisers descended lower through the clouds toward the ice below. Inside the underground facility, warning sirens screamed. "They're directly overhead." The lead engineer looked toward the massive displacement core. Energy readings climbed dangerously higher every second. Then the senior military commander entered the chamber. His face remained calm despite the chaos around him. "How long until full activation?" The engineer hesitated. "If we trigger the final phase, the entire Dominion fleet near Earth will disappear." The commander nodded once. "And the risk?" The engineer looked toward the shaking machine. "We don't know how far the field will spread afterward." Silence filled the room. Everyone understood what he meant. The weapon might save Earth, or destroy far more than intended. Far above them, Dominion ships began firing toward the ice. Massive impacts shook the underground complex. Snow and debris crashed from the ceiling while lights flickered violently. Technicians stumbled across the floor as another explosion echoed overhead. "They're getting closer." The commander looked toward the giant machine one final time. Then he spoke quietly. "Activate the final phase." Several people froze. One scientist whispered nervously, "There may be no way to stop it afterward." The commander answered without hesitation. "If the Dominion survives today, they will return forever." Nobody spoke again. The lead engineer slowly reached toward the activation controls. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear of dying, from fear of what humanity had created. Above the facility, Dominion cruisers prepared another strike. The fleet commander stood proudly on his bridge once more, believing victory had finally returned. Then every warning system aboard his flagship activated simultaneously. Officers looked around in confusion. What is happening? Energy levels are spiking across the entire system. The distortion field is expanding beyond containment. The commander's expression changed instantly. For the first time since arriving at Earth, true fear entered his eyes. Because the space around the fleet no longer looked normal. Stars were bending. Light itself appeared twisted. And somewhere beneath the frozen ice of Earth, humanity had just unleashed the final stage of a weapon never meant to exist. The final phase activated at exactly 4:42 Universal Earth time. First, nothing happened. Inside the underground facility beneath Antarctica, scientists stared nervously at their screens, while the massive displacement core shook harder than ever before. The sound coming from the machine no longer felt mechanical. It sounded deeper now, almost alive, like space itself was groaning under pressure. Warning alarms flashed across every wall. Core stability dropping. Field expansion increasing. We are beyond safe limits. The lead engineer held tightly onto the control platform as the floor vibrated beneath him. Above them, Dominion warships continued preparing their next strike against the facility. Giant cannons glowed through the clouds while attack fighters circled the frozen skies. The fleet commander finally believed victory had returned. Humans had pushed their weapon too far, and now it was collapsing. At least that was what he thought. Then the stars disappeared. Not permanently, only for a second. But every person aboard every Dominion ship saw it happen. One moment space was filled with stars. The next moment there was only darkness. Complete darkness. Then reality snapped back again. Panic exploded instantly across the fleet. What was that? Navigation systems offline. We lost visual tracking. Inside the flagship, officers grabbed onto their stations as warning sirens screamed across the bridge. The commander looked toward the main display in shock. Space around Earth no longer looked normal. Huge invisible waves moved slowly through orbit, bending light around them. Ships caught near the waves began stretching unnaturally before disappearing completely. One cruiser vanished beside the flagship. Then another. Then an entire carrier group disappeared together. No debris remained behind. The final phase was no longer targeting single ships. It was swallowing entire sections of the fleet. Down on Earth, people watched the night sky flicker strangely. Giant alien ships that had terrified humanity for days now disappeared one after another above the atmosphere. News reporters struggled to explain what viewers were seeing. One broadcaster stood silently for several seconds before speaking again. They're gone. Millions watched live as another enormous Dominion battleship vanished above the planet without leaving anything behind. Inside shelters, fear slowly transformed into something unfamiliar. Relief. People hugged each other while crying. Others simply stared upward in disbelief. Humanity was surviving. Inside the underground Antarctic facility, conditions became worse every minute. Several systems exploded from overload. Smoke filled sections of the chamber while emergency crews rushed to contain electrical fires. A young technician looked toward the lead engineer. The spread isn't stopping. Another scientist turned pale while studying the readings. It's moving beyond the fleet. The room fell silent. Everyone feared the same possibility. If the displacement field continued expanding, it could threaten satellites, nearby stations, maybe even the moon itself. The senior military commander stepped toward the main controls. "Can you shut it down?" The lead engineer answered honestly. "I don't know." That answer terrified everyone more than the alarms. Far above Earth, the Dominion fleet completely collapsed into chaos. Ships fled in every direction, trying desperately to escape the spreading waves distorting space around them. Communication systems failed repeatedly. Entire formations crashed into one another during blind escape attempts. The empire that once conquered 164 civilizations had become terrified prey. Inside the flagship bridge, the commander struggled to regain control. All ships retreat beyond lunar orbit. An officer looked horrified. "Commander, many jump drives are no longer functioning. Then use conventional engines. We may not outrun the field." The commander slammed his fist against the command platform again. He could not accept what was happening. Not to the Dominion. Not to him. 164 victories. Entire worlds had fallen before his fleet. Now humans were destroying everything he built without even boarding a single ship. Suddenly, another human transmission appeared across every remaining Dominion screen. This time the message included sound. calm human voice spoke clearly. Leave Earth. This is your final warning. No threats. No celebration. Just a warning. That frightened many Dominion officers even more. Humans were not acting like conquerors. They were acting like people trying desperately to stop something dangerous from spreading further. One officer quietly whispered, "I don't think they fully control it." The commander heard him, and for the first time he realized the officer was probably right. Humanity had unleashed something terrifying, but they feared it too. Back on Earth, military forces continued tracking the spreading field carefully. Satellites monitored orbital changes while hidden facilities prepared emergency shutdown procedures. Inside one command room, a technician looked toward his superior. "The fleet is breaking apart completely," another answered while studying incoming reports. "Some ships are trying to surrender. Can they survive long enough?" Nobody knew. The distortion waves kept moving through orbit unpredictably. Any vessel caught too close simply disappeared. Meanwhile, around the world, civilians slowly emerged from shelters. People gathered in streets watching the skies. For the first time in days, some areas became quiet again. No attack sirens. No explosions. Only distant flashes far above Earth where the Dominion fleet continued collapsing. A little girl standing beside her father pointed upward. "Are the aliens leaving?" The man looked toward the disappearing ships for a long moment before answering softly. "I think they're trying to." Above Antarctica, the fleet commander made one final decision. He refused to flee. If the Dominion was going to fall, he would destroy Earth's weapon first. "Prepare direct descent toward the surface," he ordered. Several officers stared at him in disbelief. "Commander, the flagship will never survive that approach." "It does not matter anymore." The massive flagship turned slowly toward Earth. Its engines burned brighter than ever as it descended directly toward Antarctica through the unstable field. Inside the underground facility, warning systems detected the incoming ship immediately. "The flagship is descending." The senior commander narrowed his eyes. "He's coming for the core." The lead engineer looked exhausted. "If that ship reaches us while the field is unstable." He did not finish the sentence. He didn't need to. The explosion could destroy everything. The commander quickly made his decision. "Prepare manual shutdown." Several scientists looked shocked. "But the fleet is already broken." Another tremor shook the facility violently. The displacement core continued roaring beneath the chamber floor while cracks spread across nearby walls. The lead engineer hesitated. "If we shut it down too fast, the backlash could still spread through orbit. And if we don't?" The engineer looked upward toward the approaching flagship. "We may lose the planet." For a brief moment, silence filled the room again. Then workers rushed into motion. Across the chamber, emergency shutdown systems activated one by one. Above the atmosphere, the Dominion flagship pushed forward through distorted space, while smaller ships disappeared all around it. The commander stood proudly despite the chaos surrounding him. He watched Earth growing larger through the bridge windows. If he could destroy the source, perhaps history would still remember him as the commander who nearly defeated humanity. Then the distortion wave reached the flagship. At first, only the outer sections of the ship began flickering strangely. Lights failed across entire corridors. Metal surfaces twisted unnaturally. Officers screamed as control panels vanished directly in front of them. The commander grabbed the edge of the platform while the bridge itself began warping around him. For the first time in his life, true fear completely consumed him. Not fear of losing. Fear of being erased so completely that nothing would remain. No wreckage. No grave. No proof he had ever existed at all. The human warning suddenly replayed again across the damaged bridge. "Leave Earth." The commander slowly looked toward the planet below him. Humanity had never chased conquest. Never demanded surrender from other worlds. They only wanted survival. And the Dominion had mistaken that silence for weakness. The flagship finally reached the center of the spreading field. Then it vanished. Completely. No explosion followed. No debris entered Earth's atmosphere. One second, the largest warship in the galaxy existed above Antarctica. The next second, there was only empty sky. Across orbit, surviving Dominion ships immediately fled away from Earth at maximum speed. Many disappeared during escape attempts, but some finally reached safe distance beyond the spreading waves. Within minutes, the invasion was over. Humanity had survived. Back inside the underground facility, the emergency shutdown sequence finally completed. The displacement core dimmed slowly. Then the giant machine went silent. For the first time in hours, the chamber stopped shaking. Exhausted scientists stared at the inactive core while smoke drifted through the air. Nobody celebrated. Nobody cheered. They were too overwhelmed to speak. Far above Earth, the skies slowly cleared. The giant alien fleet that once surrounded the planet was gone. Not defeated in battle. Erased. Days later, recovery drones searched orbit expecting to find wreckage from the destroyed fleet. They found nothing. No broken ships. No metal fragments. No remains. Just empty space. News of the battle spread rapidly beyond Earth through intercepted alien networks. Civilizations that once feared the Dominion could hardly believe the reports. The Empire, with 164 victories, had attacked humanity and disappeared without leaving even wreckage behind. Earth sent only one message into deep space afterward. We never wanted war. Leave us in peace. And for a very long time after that message, no fleet dared come near Earth again.